Welcome into Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. It was all quiet for the Boilers last week as they enjoyed an early bye, but it certainly wasn't quiet for some of their counterparts, including the next opponent coming up here Saturday afternoon at Ross-Ade Stadium. We'll talk Notre Dame and get some injury updates from Tom Dienhart in just a bit. But first, let's thank our sponsors, starting with Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill, and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. And, of course, our friends at the Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. We're now joined by goldenblack.com writer and editor Tom Dienhart, and it's the best thing about bye weeks, Tom, isn't it? You think you're just going to kick the feet up and relax and nothing crazy is going to happen, and then boom, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, that was a crazy Saturday. I'm sure you watch games like a lot of the people watching this did. That's why we watch Derek Schultz. Expect the unexpected, that Titanic upset, how that changes the dynamic for this weekend's game. Of course, Notre Dame losing 16-14 at home to Northern Illinois as a 28.5-point favorite. How will that change the mindset of the Fighting Irish as they work their way south here on Friday? Who knows? I asked Ryan Walters that on Monday. He of course, is expecting an angry team, as I guess he should. So, yeah, it just adds another twist of intrigue to what shapes up to be a real fun Saturday, buddy.
It's kind of the age-old question. Would you rather your opponent be coming off an easy victory where they're maybe overconfident, or would you rather them be coming off a catastrophic loss where if they needed a wake-up call, certainly you would think if the wake-up call is going to come for Notre Dame, it's losing at home and getting pushed around by a MAC opponent?
I tell you what, too, and this takes away any wiggle room Notre Dame probably has left, Derek, if it wants to make the college football playoff. So, yeah, you think that sense of urgency is ratcheted up. We'll see, right? I mean, who knows? If Purdue comes out here on Saturday at 3:30, punches them in the nose, gets a lead, maybe some self-doubt creeps into Notre Dame again. So you never know. I guess any way you want to spin it, you can, right? But that's one plausible scenario. I do know this, playing in Ross-Ade is going to be a huge edge for Purdue. It always is, anytime you're home. But more so than usual, my friend, this place is going to be packed. If it had a roof on it, it would blow off. It just sets up as one of the bigger games we've seen here in West Lafayette in the last 4 or 5 years.
And we've seen some great atmospheres and great opponents come into Ross-Ade in the interim period between Notre Dame's last visit, which I'm not mistaken was all the way back in 2013, where you had, of course, the Tyler Trent game against Ohio State, primetime, ESPN. You've had some other good ones as well. I remember Jim Harbaugh and his Michigan team coming in here earlier in the season and early in the Jeff Brom era, and that was a great atmosphere and a great game. But you've been around this rivalry for a long time, and now that it's resuming, is there something that's a little bit different and a little bit added to the fact that it's Purdue, Notre Dame, both obviously schools being located right here in the state of Indiana, stone's throw from one another?
Yeah, real quick, another big game I had forgotten about was 2021. Michigan State came to West Lafayette ranked number 3 in the country, and Purdue knocked them off.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there have been so many great Purdue Notre Dame games over the year, of course. That's where Purdue sort of got its Boilermaker moniker, upsetting Notre Dame teams going back to the 50s all the way through the 70s and the 80s and whatnot. So, I guess the fact that this is Notre Dame's first trip here in over 10 years adds a special twist to this game as well. And even at more of a micro level, I think, for Ryan Walters, I asked him about this too. Is this a prove-it game? It's a very young tenure, obviously. He's only in his second year. He's 38 years old. Is this a prove-it game for Ryan Walters and what he's trying to do here in West Lafayette? He didn't run away from it. He agreed it is. He said he'd be fine if he said this game was not circled on his calendar. I thought that was kind of refreshing to hear him embrace it. He didn't say, well, this is just like every other game. It's not like every other game. This is a prove-it game. We can all say it out loud. He knows it. He's embraced it. Great opportunity, Rand. I'd rather play these games than play another Indiana State or Middle Tennessee State or Alcorn State. This is what you lift weights for. This is a chance, Derek, to show it to all those people who thought so little of Purdue this summer. Well, Purdue, what do you got? We're going to find out.
Yeah, and I think that approach, Tom, would have been the case even if Notre Dame had beaten NIU by 4 touchdowns, right? That this was going to be – but considering that outcome, we know that a win for Purdue would be meaningful, not only from the rivalry standpoint, but because of the blood that's clearly being smelled that's in the water right now. But we've talked all along about not being able to judge 2024 Purdue on wins and losses because the schedule is being so rigorous. But does that loss change your mindset or change your approach at all to how we talk about and analyze this game?
I guess I don't think so. It's still Notre Dame. They still had the nice win at Texas A&M to open the year. Nobody knows how these seasons will unfold for anybody, but I still have to think this is a quality Notre Dame team, despite that stunning loss that they suffered last weekend up in South Bend. So, no, I don't think it does. And if Purdue beats them, it doesn't diminish the accomplishment. People say, that team lost in Northern Illinois. They're not any good anyway. We don't know. I just think about the first 2 weeks of this year, Derek. Florida State lost to Georgia Tech, and then they got to play Boston College next. They're not going to lose twice. They're not going to lose to Boston College. They got thumped on their home field by Boston College. So, I mean, we still don't know. These stories are still being authored before our very eyes. The ultimate works in progress, as they are every year. We're asked to make grand proclamations. We're asked to come to conclusions after small sample sizes. That's what we do, Derek, right? So we do. Sometimes you look foolish. Sometimes you look brilliant. But I know you have a sneaking feeling Purdue has more than a puncher's chance here. We've seen the line come from 16 to, I think, 11 or 12. And I got the sense maybe Purdue's got something up its sleeve, too. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned, the grand proclamations and things like that. Not just Notre Dame, but look at the way that Oregon has stumbled out of the gates.
Yeah.
I know it's Colorado and they're very flawed, but I think the Nebraska game was one that we circled and said, hey, this is a coin flip game that Purdue's got to have. And now you look at Nebraska and you're like, damn, if they've got quarterback figured out and they've got coach figured out, then watch out. But again, Tom, small sample sizes, right? We're not putting teams in the playoff after 2 weeks. As much as we want to, we're not able to do that after 2 weeks.
I haven't had my Christmas shopping yet or bought any Halloween candy. We can't get there yet. Or rake any leaves. But yeah, you're right. We're not putting anybody in there yet. Again, we're always asked to make those projections. And some teams, I think we probably can assume we'll get there. Georgia, I think Ohio State's legit. But yeah, everybody else, we'll see. And Purdue in particular, which is why we're here, which is why people are watching. Just eager to see what they've got. The matchups, Derek. Everything's about matchups in life. And the strength, the Purdue offense, the Notre Dame defense. Will that clash be the one that decides this game? It could be, it could be what a referendum on Hudson Card too. It's funny. I'm still waiting after over a year, Derek, trying to figure out how good he really is. He's only passed for 300 yards one time at Purdue. That was against Syracuse last year. I don't know. I wish. He's a great guy. He seems like he's a great talent. I guess I'm still waiting to be wowed. I'm still waiting for a real big game where he hits some big passes to maybe win a game in the fourth quarter. That's how you forge reputations, doing that against teams like Notre Dame. So a great opportunity for Hudson Card, especially, right, Derek, coming off that historic performance a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, that's how, if you're going to be, I'm not saying that he's vying for the cradle of quarterbacks, right? I mean, that's a distinct error. But if you're going to be remembered at Purdue, these are the type of games you have to show out on. I mean, no offense to Curtis Painter. He had all kinds of records and things like that. But throwing for 450 yards against Central Michigan isn't going to matter if you can't compete against Ohio State and Wisconsin and Notre Dame and teams like that. Yeah,
you got to win. And the other thing about a quarterback, and Drew Brees was so good at this, can he make everybody around him better? Go back and look at those wide receivers Drew Brees was throwing to. There's no Randy Mosses there. He made everybody.
Vinny Sutherland was my size, right?
Yeah,
and I love Vinny. Yeah.
He was great with that bubble screen. So, yeah, I guess, and I think, to Hudson's defense, he got banged up last year. I know he was banged up bad, Derek. Almost didn't play at Iowa, and he didn't play at Northwestern. The offensive line was sort of a train wreck, too, most of the year with injuries. His wide receiving core, let's be honest, I mean, it wasn't that good. We saw a lot of those guys leave campus here after the season as well. So, and it was his first year to ever be a starting quarterback. Now, maybe I'm making excuses for Hudson Card, But I think those are legitimate points to be made. It looks to me, Derek, like he's got the full deck this year. We've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about the receiving core, the tight ends, the running game. Man, it seems like it's set up for this offense to really rock and roll. And that defense, you talked about that defense, I think last week. You knew other players in the secondary for Notre Dame. That defense is going to be salty, and they're going to come after Hudson Card.
We'll talk more about an injury update with Tom and also touch on a little more with Notre Dame coming up here in just a few minutes. But wanted to also thank some of our other sponsors of Golden Black Radio, including Sand Valley Resort, heading up to Camp Randall to see the Boilers take on Wisconsin, who we just mentioned, coming up here on October 5th. If you sign up, you can win 4 tickets to the game, plus an overnight stay at Sand Valley, your new winter resort getaway, just an hour and a half from Madison. Visit sandvalleypursuits.com/Purdue giveaway to sign up and enter. And also, of course, here at goldenblack.com, we want you to be a member. So go ahead. And if you're not already part of Knucklehead Central and all of that, we would love to have you. Go to goldenblack.com where you can sign up today. You had mentioned wide receiver CJ Smith and also cornerback Nyland Green yesterday. Yeah. Tom, if you would just kind of give us a rundown of the other injuries and statuses, if you will, to keep an eye on before Saturday afternoon games kicks against the Irish.
Real quick, those two guys, Ryan Walters does not anticipate playing. They're not playing. And I had a feeling with CJ Smith that he's got a hamstring issue, Derek. Those hamstring issues for a guy who's super fast, I mean, this thing could linger. I hate to speculate, but that's my 2 cents. And then, of course, Nyland Green's got the foot issue. Talking to some people today, who would you like to have most of those two against Notre Dame? I think you would rather have CJ Smith if you could. Just have another receiving weapon to go against that Notre Dame secondary. Sprinkle in CJ Smith with Jamal Edrin. You got Cam Brown back. Jerron Tibbs, Shamar Rigby. That'd be another nice weapon to have for Hudson Card against that ND defense. But again, they're out. Stay tuned on their return. I know Ryan Walters is sticking his head in the training room every day going, you guys ready? You guys ready? But the good news, they're starting left tackle, Corey Stewart, good to go, my friend. He may be an NFL player, Ball State transfer. I mentioned Cam Brown, the UCLA wide receiver, who actually began his career at Texas A&M. This is his 3rd school. He's going to be ready to go. He'll add quality depth. He's a 6th-year player, probably about 23 or 24 years old. And then Joe Anderson, maybe an underrated addition. I don't think he practiced at all in camp. He's another 6th-year guy, and he's a defensive lineman, interior guy, so he'll be another nice big body to have. He could start. He's going to play a lot if he doesn't start. DeMarge Lewis, Joe Anderson, Jeffrey Emba, Jamaris Dinkins. They got some more people, another big body to throw on the interior of that D-line to try to slow down the Irish run. I'll tell you what, Derek, not to get into big matchups talk here and scenarios, but if you're the Purdue defensive coordinator, don't you have to sell out to stop the run and make Riley Leonard try to throw to beat you? It's pretty simple, it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Notre Dame is among the worst FBS teams. Again, small sample size for 2 games. They have no passing touchdowns. I think they're one of only 5 teams to not have a passing touchdown in the first 2 weeks of the season. And just efficiency-wise and most of the passing offensive numbers, they're bottom barrel, like in the 130s. So I think you have to do that because all these transfer receivers that Notre Dame has and Jaden Greathouse, and they have a couple of carryovers as well, but they haven't proven yet that they can be big play threats. And Leonard hasn't proven that he can be a big play threat outside of his legs. I mean, obviously that's something that you have to keep an eye on is Leonard's running ability. Yeah,
boy, you get a lead on these guys. You make Riley Leonard try to throw the football to beat you. I mean, if you're Kevin Kane and Ryan Walters, you couldn't ask for a better scenario. Get up, make them pass the ball. If they have to pass the ball 30 or 40 times, they're probably sunk, right? Yeah. And we'll see if they can get some heat on this guy, right? We talk about Will Helt. We've talked about C.J. Madden, some of these guys off the edge. Sheeta Soleil. This is their chance to feast, Derek. We'll see if – and that's a Notre Dame offensive line that's really struggled. We'll see if these guys can feast, get some heat. Maybe they'll put a spy on Riley Leonard. Maybe Antonio Stevens, somebody spies him too so he doesn't use those legs you talked about. So these coaches over here, a couple blocks from me, are a lot smarter than I am. If I'm talking about this, there's probably 10th level stuff they already figured out, right?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the NIU on both sides in the trenches, they really pushed around Notre Dame. That was not a fluke game. They were the better team throughout that game for 4 quarters. Something else I wanted to leave you with, Tom, and you mentioned about Walters, and we'll get into the matchup stuff coming up here more in depth on Friday, but just that attitude that I know some people read it as cockiness, but I was at an event last week during the bye with Boilermaker Alliance, and Ryan Walters seemed very confident in their chances against Notre Dame, and this was well before the Northern Illinois loss. And I just think that confidence, instead of kind of coming in here with a "oh shucks, happy to be here" type mentality, I think that bodes well for Purdue. I'm not saying that they're going to win the game or guaranteeing anything with that. I'm just saying that I think that does give them a leg up in this situation to have a coach that carries himself that way.
I think you take your lead from your leader. Everybody's watching you. Everybody's watching the head coach as a player. You're watching. How's my head coach responding? How's he react when things aren't going right? How's he react when we're playing an elite team? And Ryan Walters is pretty even keeled. I wish I was the same, Derek. In the midst of the storm, that's how you really define yourself as a person, I think. How you deal with adversity, no matter what you do in life. How do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with expectations? How do you deal with a big game? And you're right. He's unwavering. He's not cocky. He doesn't run away from expectations. He's not a shrinking violet. He's got that, I guess, quiet confidence would be maybe the best way to sum it up really succinctly. Quiet confidence for a young coach. Boy, again, I wish I had some of what he had at 38 years old. I still had long hair when I was 38, Derek. I was beautiful. Look at me now. But he's a great guy to work with, good with the media. And I tell you what, I'm still have a arm's length distance, obviously, from the program. But, boy, it seems like there's a real camaraderie there, a real chemistry that he's tried to foster with everybody in that building, the players, the support staff. And I tell you what, if you think somebody loves you and believes in you, you're going to really lay it on the line for that person.
Going to be an interesting week and certainly an interesting afternoon coming up at Ross-Ade Stadium, 3:30 for Purdue and Notre Dame kicking off. And we'll be far more in depth with the matchup and all of that when we welcome back Tom on Friday, along with Brian Newbert and Alan Karpick and the rest of the Golden Black Radio crew. Thanks so much, Tom. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.
Thank you. Good job, Derek. Good to see you, buddy.
Can't wait for Saturday. It's going to be a really great one as Purdue and Notre Dame renew their rivalry. Want to thank our friends again at Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple & Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. Our friends at the Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, a perfect spot for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at Whitaker Inn. And Sand Valley Resort. Sign up at sandvalleypursuits.com/Purdue giveaway to win free tickets for the October 5th battle between the Boilers and the Badgers at Camp Randall. And hopefully that's the end of a long losing skid for Purdue in that series. Until Friday for Golden Black Radio, I'm Derek Schultz. We'll see you in a couple of days.